I don't know what it is, but I'm finally like super, super sick of that stupid Geico gecko. Like, I just want to bing him across the room. Like, I'm just tired of it.
Why did he just become a billionaire?
No, although Rihanna just did, and I was like, good on you, Rihanna, but shit, we have another billionaire. No, what he just became was
Plenty of black billionaires.
billionth commercial.
Mm.
Yeah. How many black women billionaires, though?
I think Oprah is one.
I think you're probably right about Oprah. And you say plenty. I believe there's only like 2,800 billionaires in the world, but
plenty's the wrong word. Plenty would be if it was proportional, which it probably isn't. But there are some. Let's just put it that way.
Yes. So I am pleased for Rihanna, but also annoyed. But but no, I'm talking about the lizard. I'm sick of seeing the lizard. Also, does Geico insurance exist in the UK? And if so, does the lizard have a British accent there?
I thought his accent was Australian or maybe New Zealand. No, I think it's Australian. Isn't it Australian?
I don't think so. If you know what accent the Geico gecko has, please tell us in on the blog, themagicaltalkinghead.com.
Why?
Hello, everyone.
Aren't there geckos in the United States? I mean, why would...
Yeah, there's geckos all over the place.
What's the point?
It's because Geico gecko. You mean the point of the accent? I have no idea. I'm not sure there are geckos in the UK. I'm not even sure there are geckos in Australia, actually. There's lots of weird shit in Australia. I don't know if there's geckos. But there are definitely geckos in the US. So I have no idea.
I don't know either.
It sounded cool. I used to kind of be into them, but now I'm just like, I'm so tired of them. I was actually happy when Geico decided to focus in on one fucking mascot, because they had so many. They had the cavemen, and for a while they had the talking money, or at least the money with the googly eyes, and like a few things. And I was like, oh my God, pick something. And they did the lizard, and I was happy. But now I'm seeing the lizard so much, I'm like, tired of you, lizard. Move on.
Okay. This is you caring about trivial things so that you don't have to think about the serious things that you were going to really drive you crazy if you cared about them.
I mean, mostly. Also, this is me enjoying being able to weigh in on something because it is A, trivial, and B, often simple, as opposed to the complex things. I'm not comfortable saying, you know what? I think money should be abolished. I mean, I think that's worth looking into, but
it wouldn't help you if I took the opposite position and was totally defending the gecko. That ruin your whole vibe.
It might help the podcast. I don't know if it would help me.
Yeah, you're looking for a thing
the show.
Looking for a thing that most people aren't going to argue with you about, even if they disagree. They're not going to feel so strongly about it.
But this is a thing that people do because it feels nice to be able to take a position on something and really lean into it. It's the reality TV thing all over again. If you watch reality TV, I pick who my favorite is and who I hate, and it's based on very little. But who the fuck cares? Because I'm just sitting in my house watching it. And it just feels so nice because everything else, you have to be like, well, either you have ambivalent feelings or you have strong feelings, but you're irrational and that's not fair. To be like, I know it's a more complicated issue than that. So it feels really good when you got something where it's like, you know what? This feels pretty cut and dry. And also, even if it's not, who the hell cares?
Low stakes.
Yes. And also, I don't give a shit about I am happy to be pissed off at anything involving advertisements because advertisements are what's wrong with the world. It would be great if we didn't fucking have advertisements. But, see, be good for the podcast. Jump in here, save advertisements.
Oh, I mean, it just made me think when you said it. It just made me think. Well, how's anyone going to let anybody know about their services? But I presume you don't mean like. I don't know what you mean. I guess maybe you mean all advertisements. I don't know how it's going to make money.
I don't know what I mean.
I mean, sometimes I can probably point to things in this room that we only have because we saw an advertisement and said, oh, yeah, we want that. I mean, how are we going to know?
Oh, yeah. Everything in this house and this house.
Yeah, that's true. Right. So, okay. Never mind.
Wouldn't it have been nice, though, if, like, I bought this house because you were like, I know this guy who builds houses and I think he's trustworthy and a good contractor, so you should. But then
I go to jail because I advertised.
I was going to say, you've become an advertisement. So, yeah, I mean, I am perfectly comfortable saying advertisement is required for anyone to get anything, and I hate it, and it should be abolished. Maybe anyone getting anything should be abolished.
Okay. All right.
People keep getting things. No, I don't approve. Come on, jump on the pro getting things side. Come on. You know you want to. Give me the argument for getting things.
I'm just too entertained by what you're saying. I don't, I can't work up the moral outrage.
That's my gift. This is my new stand-up persona. You ever noticed people have stuff? Doesn't that suck? It'd be better if we didn't have stuff. Anything. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Magical Talking Hat podcast, the only podcast in the world brave enough to take a stand against people acquiring things. I had to phrase that in a way that, like, I didn't imply just the concept of private property, because I'm sure there are other podcasts or whatever. No, we are opposed to people acquiring stuff of any kind, including food or water. You'll die. I'm Tony.
And this is episode 542.
542.
Yes.
What are we even doing?
I don't know.
For those of you just joining us, let me explain how this works for the moment. Bug spray. No, we have a hat. It is magical in that it has its own email address, themagicaltalkinghat@gmail.com, and all the peoples. That's not true, like two peoples. Right into that email address, themagicaltalkinghat@gmail.com, with little notes, comments, questions, topics, things like that. The hat magically transmogrifies those emails into little note cards with the information written on them that manifest physically within the hat itself. Us draw the note cards out of the hat at random, read them on the air, talk about them till we're bored. Do that for about an hour. That's the whole show, except the parts that aren't, which is most of it for now. But soon, once the hat has finished with all of its current note cards, the hat will just start forwarding the emails to us, and we will read the emails in their entirety on the air and discuss them. So that's going to be an exciting day for humanity.
Well, did you have a speech and debate? I don't know what to say. It's not a club.
Speech club? Yeah, debate club's a thing.
Yeah, but I'm talking about something else. It's like
Toastmasters?
No. Like there were athletics and there was band, but then you'd also have like the drama and speech thing. It wasn't so much a club, but you would be in the classes that taught it, and you'd be in the plays and stuff. Did you have that? I mean, were you active in drama when you were in high school?
I was in every play that happened while I was there, except one, which didn't hold auditions. I never took a drama course. No.
Oh, okay. Did you ever do any drama competitions or anything like that?
No, no.
Because in here
Where
in
I grew
Iowa,
up, we had mountains and ocean, so we didn't. A lot of the shit you guys did to keep yourselves from going insane, we didn't do.
well, here in Iowa anyway, we have,
Cornholing, for example, we didn't do cornholing.
growing up either. I'm not sure when that started. I don't remember that when I was growing up. I mean, we played
Because you
lawn
had to
darts.
save the corn to eat it.
We played lawn darts, which I think didn't last very long. But
love lawn darts.
Lawn darts and horseshoes.
I lost several siblings to lawn darts.
I think the skills involved in the whole cornhole game and horseshoes is probably similar. Cornhole has probably replaced horseshoes is what's happened. But we played horseshoes when I was a kid. But anyway,
people used to have a lot of horses around for transportation and things, and now they have a lot of corn around instead, driving corn.
Well, and my grandfather farmed with horses and stuff. But anyway, in Iowa, we had
maybe I'm just planting them too shallow or too deep. Those horses ain't growing. It's a solid joke. I don't care what you say about acreage. It's a solid joke.
A lot of schools had speech and debate. Like I say, there weren't really clubs. It was just like you had athletics, you had band, you had speech and debate. Anyway, so one of the competitions that you would have if you went to speech and debate competitions is radio broadcast. And so what that entailed was you show up to your section and they give you some actual news copy, from AP or something. Then you have to edit it. You've got to decide which pieces you're going to cover. You've got to decide what parts of the pieces you've got to cover. And ideally they'll give you like scissors and glue or whatever, so you can like clip it out and paste it on one sheet of paper so you can have your one ad copy that you've edited. Then you go into a room by yourself and you have a microphone very much like this one, and you read your copy, your news copy, and the judge listens to your broadcast, and you're rated on your ability to edit news copy, to decide what's relevant and not relevant, and then to read it. And if they notice that the way you edited it was you took out any news item that has like a difficult name to pronounce or something, that's going to ding you. You're going to do a lot better if you go ahead and you're brave enough to read a news item that's like got names that you have to.
But what if you just took out any news item that made a particular side of the political spectrum look better or worse?
Well, now back then
there was no such thing as
AP copy wasn't like that. There wasn't, at least I couldn't, when I read AP copy back then, I never noticed any political slant. It just said this happened.
No, but I mean, certain things can happen that can lend themselves to one side or the other, and you could just take that out.
And the way a person writes the headline or whatever. But I mean, I didn't do radio broadcast competition, but I attended the sessions because I was interested in. I don't know why I didn't do it. I should have, but
I mean, the podcast would be better now if you had.
There was never, politics never had anything to do with it. I mean, there was just, or at least it didn't seem to. Every news back then in general just seemed less like it is now, I guess. But I wish I had done it because it looked really interesting and it looked fun, and I think I would have been good at it. But the reason I didn't do it was because
fear of microphones.
You could only do so many things. And I was already doing improvisational acting, and that was kind of my thing. That's the thing I went to state festival in, and I got a highest rating in state competition in and everything. That was my thing. But if I was going to do anything else besides improvisational acting, it was going to be dramatic monologue or comedy monologue, which I did both of those too. So there wasn't really any room for the radio thing, but I attended the sessions and stuff. It's like, man, I wish I could do this, but I just don't have the space. But you didn't, did other people do speech and competitions and you just didn't, or?
I have never heard of what you are describing.
Huh.
I have heard of debate club or occasionally forensics team along that line, but
And state
I
level competitions in these things? Like
yeah,
maybe?
probably.
Yeah.
Probably. I don't know
Yeah.
that our school participated.
Oh, okay.
It may have been a size issue, it may have been a region issue. So maybe they did and I just didn't know about it.
I did
There were
athletics, but I never went to
classes where
state.
we had to do debate occasionally, like traditional, like here's the thing, one of you's got to be pro, one of you's got to be con, and I did those. But nothing particularly special about that.
I did athletics, but I never went to state in athletics. I only went to state in speech and band. I went to state in those things. Interestingly, whenever our school went to state in athletics, like even if just one person went for like track or something, it was a huge deal, made the news, and there was like maybe even 2 or 3 pages. If just one person in track went to state, there was like a 2-page spread in the yearbook that later that year. But if you went to state music or anything else,
That tracks. That tracks.
yearbook, my senior yearbook, I was the only person to go to state festival in speech. I went in improvisational acting, nothing, not even mentioned. One guy in track went to state and there's a whole 2-page thing about him in my senior yearbook. I was like, wow. I mean, no one, you know, it's pretty, I mean, I didn't want a 2-page spread. It just would have been nice to be mentioned.
All those fabulously wealthy Melcher Dallas alums who are donating whole wings to the high school only care about sports.
Well, that's true.
So that's what you're stuck
Oh, that
with.
reminds me, our gymnasium got condemned. It's probably already been torn down. They're going to have to build a new one, which is weird because that gymnasium was first built while my dad was in high school or right before, either right before or while he was in high school. And he played basketball in that gymnasium. And so did I. So, you know, it was pretty cool that we could both say we played in that gymnasium, and now it doesn't exist. Or, well, I presume now it doesn't exist because it got condemned.
Should have got it on some sort of historic registry. My dad, the day he felt oldest was when we were visiting the town he was born in, and the hospital he was born in had been registered as a historical landmark.
Yeah.
He was like, wow, I'm old.
Anyway, I started talking about that because of the microphone. Like here I am sitting in front of a microphone.
Sure, blame the microphone. Yeah, sure. So it's been 2 weeks. What have you been up to besides keeping close track on the state of your high school gym?
It has been a time of existential crisis, as you probably already know, because I went to see my cardiologist, and he told me that, well, I think I've talked on the podcast about how I have a congenital heart problem. I've known about it since I was very young, you know, congenital. And it's required me to have a cardiologist my whole life. I had a cardiologist growing up. I had a cardiologist when I first came to the University of Iowa, and I have a cardiologist now. So I went and I did my usual thing. But this time, they gave me the news that I've been expecting for many years, although I thought it would be later. I thought I would be in my 60s. And the news is that, yeah, you've got to have surgery. And but besides the fact that it's come earlier than I expected, I didn't know that it would feel like that. I didn't know that it would. No, I can't really describe it. You're basically sitting in in a little room with a doctor who, by the way, has a mask on, and I've got a mask on, you know, the COVID thing.
Yeah.
That just made it weirder. And he's basically saying, you're going to die. The cosmos has determined that based on your genetics, your circumstances, and everything else, you are not a person who would, under normal circumstances, live to the age of 60. In fact, the only way you're ever going to see 60 is if we save your life. I mean, this is what this person is telling me. And that just feels weird. It just like, and again, this is a conversation I knew I would eventually have. And maybe it matters that I'm having it like 10 years earlier than I thought. And maybe it also matters that it was preceded by symptoms. I have been having symptoms in the last 6 months of the problem.
Okay.
So I wasn't entirely surprised that we were going to have this conversation, but I wasn't exactly imagining it happening either. You know, I didn't want it to happen, but I've been having some symptoms, so I knew that things had gotten worse. And I'm just completely thrown by this, like in a way I didn't, you know, maybe you can't anticipate or think about or predict, but it's like, wow.
I often wonder. I mean, I think it's another one of those things that like everybody is different. But yeah, I imagine it's similar to, you know, they're like, you got cancer. I imagine. I mean, anything that's potentially terminal like that. I had a huge reaction just when I found out I had diabetes. Like I had to take the day off, and like it was a thing. And like that one totally may not kill me, and probably won't soon. But yeah, I can't even imagine your situation. It does occur to me, it is, I mean, obviously it's bad that it became a problem earlier than later, but the good news is, other than that, you are younger and healthier, which means odds are the surgery goes better.
Well,
if you got to get it done.
Okay, but so then come the choices. And this stuff is hard because right now, I was hoping that when this happened, they would have the technology available where I could just like have a new valve laser printed or something from my own stem cells or something. And I wouldn't really have to consider these two choices that have been the choices that people like since my grandma had her surgery 35 years ago or something. But I have the same choices my grandma had and that my dad had. And my grandma chose one thing and my dad chose another thing. And here are the choices. You can get a valve from a pig or a cow. The benefit is it's kind of a one and done thing. You don't have to take any kind of special medication or whatever. I mean, if you have hypertension, that's a whole other thing, but you don't have to take any special medication for it. The downside is they only last about 20 years. You'll probably have to get it replaced. And by then you're going to be in your 70s or 80s. And that's maybe not.
And then you run into what I was just talking about. Yeah.
Right. Or you can get a mechanical valve. Now, you never have to get that replaced. It's going to last you for the rest of your life, but those cause clotting. So you have to take blood thinners for the rest of your life. And blood thinner, that means you're going to have to be monitored for bleeds and the things that come with blood thinners. And also the way blood thinners work is they target your liver. So you might have liver problem, you know, you don't know. So my grandma got the mechanical one, took blood thinners, some problems, but not very many. It seemed relatively trouble-free, but it was kind of a hassle, the whole blood thinner thing. And I think she did have a few issues. My dad got a pig valve, I think it was a pig valve. And he recently had to have it replaced and he almost didn't make it. I mean, it was bad. Although my dad is a heavier guy than me and he has type 2 diabetes and there were other complications that I probably won't be dealing with when I'm 74.
Although he's younger than you will probably be, right?
Let's see, if they go for 20 years, then I'll be 70, 72, and he was 75.
Oh, okay. In my head, your dad is younger. I don't know where I got that.
So
no, not at all. All right.
So the procedure, they didn't have to open him up. It wasn't open heart surgery.
Oh.
There's a way they can use a catheter or whatever to replace the valve. So when I think about having to, I mean, seeing him go through the things he had to go through before the surgery, it was rough. He couldn't breathe. I mean, he easily could have died before the surgery could ever have happened. And I don't want to go through that. On the other hand, I think I could go through that. The surgery wouldn't be open heart, and I would spare myself all the trouble of taking blood thinners and possibly having issues related to that.
And the potential that in 20 years, things are improved.
There's different technology entirely.
There is one thing you have not thought through. Would you rather be a cyborg or a pig man?
I have thought of this actually.
Oh,
I would rather be a cyborg,
I mean, yeah.
but
Nobody's like, I really want to be a pig man.
yeah. But if I'm a pig man, that's okay. As long as, I mean, you know, the whole thing about taking blood thinners. Now, I
mean,
think
I've always kind of thought of you as a pig man.
I could also get a cow valve because I think they've started to provide valves from cows for people who would be not, you know, from a religious standpoint, very agreeable.
William, you're talking crazy. There's no such thing as a cow man. I don't even know what you're saying.
I don't have any issues with the valve being from a pig, but if someone did ask me, said, well, you choose, you can have pig or cow, it's up to you. I would probably pick cow, and I don't really have a reason.
No, and I'm with you. I think I'm the same way.
Probably.
I think I'm the same way. I think I might be too concerned. I would try and eat my own heart valve because pork is delicious. It's hard to bite your own heart. It really is.
But if you're committed, you can probably do it.
I'm committed.
So meanwhile, Abby, you know, has her own concerns about the whole thing, and she's of course has to deal with the whole thing in her way, and she's concerned about, you know, which doctor I have, which procedure. You know, she's thinking about all of that stuff, and so that's a thing that we've been thinking about for the last couple of weeks. So, you know,
I'm fortunate in that I don't give a shit what happens, or else I probably would be going through some things too.
So for the last couple of weeks, whatever else we've been doing because of school and everything else, I mean, this has pretty much, you know, dominated our thinking. I've got one of the reasons we're doing, you didn't say, but we're doing 2 podcasts in a row today because I have a procedure a week from today that is supposed to, like, it's supposed to make sure my vascular health is good enough to do the surgery or whatever. And it's also supposed to, like, they will actually put in stents and things if they find blockages, but they don't anticipate that. But they have to do it procedurally and exploratorily. And I think they're even going to look a little at the area where the surgery is going to be to make sure they're getting the best view of it. Because what they have so far is just ultrasound, you know, of it. And maybe that's not clear enough for them or something. I don't know.
So I assume you haven't decided, but are you leaning it based on the way you spoke? It sounds like you're leaning towards Pigman.
I am, except when my cardiologist talked to me about this, he almost made it sound like he wasn't going to give me a choice. Like he said, all right, we're going to do the surgery. It's going to be a mechanical valve, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, well, I mean, you know, I've had relatives that had gone both ways on this, and these are their experiences. Is, well, you know, you can do whatever you want, but he was not really for the pig valve or whatever. Because
you got to watch out for that. You need a doctor that you need to listen to your doctor always. You also need a doctor that will listen to you and know your rights as a patient.
Well, and I think, you know, Abby wants, you know, like she wants me to know what all my options are. She doesn't want me to get railroaded by whatever the doctor wants. So she's concerned about that. And so she's sort of taking an advocate's role because I think she's a little worried that I won't do that for myself, which that's a valid concern. Because
you're kind of a wuss.
It's not so much that, it's just, for whatever reason, I'm not a very good advocate, you know, for myself from the, oh, they brought me the wrong thing. Oh, well, I'll eat it. It's fine. You know, I just don't, you know, and from some people's perspective, and I think Abby's one of these people, it's like, no, you need to, you know,
well,
stand up for yourself.
And it's because I understand from your perspective, you're like, I'm personally a piece of shit. And I'm fine with what I get, and that's fine. And I'm not calling you a piece of shit. I'm saying you think you're a piece of shit. And a lot of us have that. But from our perspective, it's not like we're fine with considering ourselves a piece of shit. But what we on the outside are seeing is someone is not being fair to our friend slash loved one. See, so you're just like, I'm a piece of shit. It's fine. It's not a big deal. I can live with it. But we're like, no, I'm a piece of shit. You're a good friend. Don't be bad. Like, you should advocate for my friend.
Yeah. Well,
but meanwhile, over here, I'm a piece of shit. I don't care.
So there's a lot. I mean, it's been a lot, and it's going to continue to be a lot. Oh, and also I have to think about this. So the recovery time for surgery. Here's another thing. I don't even know for sure what kind of surgery it is. I don't know if it's open heart, because I was going to ask him when he came in and talked to me, and I forgot, because we got so caught up in talking about other things, and I think he was so interested in sort of convincing me that we were going to do it his way, that I didn't really get a chance to get a word in edgewise about it. So I don't even know if the initial surgery is open heart, or if it's a artificial valve. They can, like, my dad's new valve was put in without them having to open him up. Well, does that mean they can put the first valve in that way, or does the first valve have to be? I mean, I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you can put a mechanical heart valve in that way, because I don't think it's flexible enough to. So, that might be another, maybe he didn't want to say that it was open heart, or that there was a difference, because he didn't want me to be swayed by, oh, well, I don't want open heart surgery, so let's do a pig valve. He didn't want me to be
all
swayed
of which
by that.
Points to a shitty doctor, in my opinion. Not necessarily a bad surgeon or whatever, but
trying to look out for my future self that he might not think I'm thinking adequately about, my 75-year-old self.
Which absolutely makes sense. And if my doctor was in that situation, my doctor would say, here are your options. Here is the one I think is best. Here is why. Here are the reasons you might want to do the other one. Here's why I don't think it's the best option. What would you like to do?
Instead of steamrolling me, I mean.
Good doctor does.
Well, and I think Abby feels the same way. I think when I told her what my doctor, how he approached the conversation, I think she was pretty bothered by that. And so now she's kind of in the mindset of, maybe it wouldn't be so bad for you to have a different doctor, or, whatever. So she's kind of sort of pushing things that way. And meanwhile, I'm thinking like, okay, yeah, maybe he didn't handle that conversation very well, but I'm still going to be the one that decides if it's going to be a pig valve or whatever.
This is a potentially bad thing for somebody who will let themselves be steamrolled. The fact that you won't means it's potentially okay if he's good at other stuff. But it is a sign that in the long term, you might want to find another dude.
He's not going to be the one performing the surgery, see?
Oh, then fuck that guy.
Well, that's where I'm at. It's like, because he is going to perform this procedure a week from now, the exploratory catheter procedure, but not the surgery. So, I mean, that's just going to be between me and whoever that surgeon is. So,
well, I mean, there'll probably be other people assisting.
Yeah. Well, and also, gosh, another thing on top of all this.
One dude with a knife in his teeth, shirtless. Let's do this thing.
Another choice that I have is the surgery cannot, for whatever reason, be done. So my cardiologist is affiliated with Mercy Hospital in Iowa City. It's not loosely affiliated, I should say. The clinic is right across the street. But anyway, the surgery cannot be done at Mercy in Iowa City. So I can decide if I'm going to have the surgery done at Mercy in Des Moines or here at the university. And so my wife is like, well, you should have it at the university.
What a fucking tough choice.
It's in Des Moines, in the Des Moines area. So it's like, well, that'd be nice if.
Yes,
but
you know what's in this area? Some of the best doctors in the country, and who aren't Catholic, as far as I know.
Oh, I mean, Abby is definitely in favor of the university. And when I had that that.
I mean, I'm just worried if you go to Mercy in Des Moines, you may have trouble because of the giant crucifix they'll have to have in the operating room that may make it difficult for the doctors and nurses to move around.
It
Also,
used
University of Iowa is one of the top hospitals in the country.
Mercy used to have these slightly bigger than life stainless steel sculptures of nuns in the lobby. I called them.
You don't know. Maybe they were just giant nuns. You don't know if they're.
I called them the Nuns of Steel, but I didn't see them there last summer.
That was my mom's favorite workout in the 80s.
Nuns of Steel.
Nuns of Steel.
Nuns of Steel.
Nuns of Steel.
Anyway, but
get rock hard nuns.
So when I
really thought this episode was going to be called Leaning Towards Pigman, but it probably has to be Nuns of Steel.
Oh, well, that would be great. So what was I going to say about, when I had that procedure done with my brain aneurysm, when I turned out that didn't have a brain aneurysm, that was at the university. So, good. And that worked out well. So I'll probably do that.
Also, weirdly, I feel like when there's 2 hours between where you live and where your family lives, maybe the burden of transport shouldn't be on the dude having heart surgery.
And they did come here. Several family members did come here for when I had the aneurysm thing. But here's another thing. Most hospitals right now won't let people visit. They're only going to let you come in with one person anyway. So it doesn't matter. True. I could go to Mercy because my sister just had surgery and none of us could go. None of us. Dad and
I mean, that was because of the court order, I'm assuming.
No, it's COVID, and with the Delta variant surging, that's not going to change. So
yeah.
So there's no point in worrying about any of that. People visiting or whatever. I don't know how I'd feel about people visiting anyway. When I've visited people in hospitals, I've often thought, is this weird for them? Is this weird? They're waking up from surgery and there's all these people around. Is that strange and confusing for them? I've often wondered. I mean, I'm visiting because I feel like I want to visit them, of course, but I also think that it will encourage and help them. But it's like, does it though? And would anyone ever look at you and say, you know what, I wish you weren't here because this is difficult enough?
Azure Talon, you spent a shitload of time in the hospital and we came to visit you, and I'm sure other people came to visit you. Talk about it. Get on the blog. Tell us how you felt and be honest, because we don't give a shit. So
have you ever spent extended time in a hospital, like a couple days?
I mean, yeah, my back surgery.
Oh yeah, right. Forgot about that.
But I was unconscious for a great deal of it. The part after I woke up from surgery was relatively short. The part before my surgery was fucking forever because they kept pushing it back.
Yeah. Forgot about that.
I honestly, I don't think I had any visitors. I was on a lot of drugs at the time. I don't think I gave a shit about. I mean, Trish was there and I wanted Trish there. And otherwise, no. But if I was in there for like days and days, I'm sure I would get bored as hell and would love visitors. I don't know. Azure Talon is a known quantity that had this experience. I feel he should speak to it. Do it.
And I think it's only going to be like 3 days, maybe. I don't think I'll be in there very long, but I mean, it'll, even if I had a really early in the morning surgery, I'm going to be there overnight for sure.
I mean,
probably 2 days.
I'm definitely coming to see you regardless of rules or what you say, but it's going to be sneaky. I'm not going in like I'm going to hide in laundry hampers and shit because mostly I just want to like freak you out with my ninja skills.
Yeah. You better go buy some scrubs.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, I got a whole set of costumes. I'm fine. I have a thing like the Joker when he was dressed as a nurse in Dark Knight.
Oh,
I have that whole setup.
Okay.
I'll be fine.
Yeah, that wouldn't be suspicious at all.
Mm-mm.
You'll walk right through to whatever. So yeah, I'm a little freaked out by it. I'm not gonna lie. I've had
I
some
did
tough
not
days.
expect you to talk about it on the podcast, but
Well, and I wouldn't normally, but I mean, this is a big deal, you know.
I think it's good to talk about. Like I sure as hell would talk about it if it was me. I just didn't expect that you would.
Well, and again, I wouldn't normally, but it seems like too big. It seems like it's such a big deal. It almost feels like you got to talk about it, you know.
I'm with you. I'm with
I
you.
mean,
Absolutely.
not gotta, but you know what I mean. I mean, how could we not talk about major heart surgery that's saving my life? I mean,
100%. But I mean, there's plenty of stuff you haven't talked about that I'm like, how could you not talk about? So, I'm in a weird place, but
level of life-saving heart surgery, or maybe you think they are. I don't know.
I don't, you've got a different set of levels than I do.
That's true. I've got different set of levels of most.
I can't imagine. I don't understand how you never talk about your butt. I feel like that's critical. I feel like that is why people listen, to hear about butts. Not just our podcast, all podcasts.
I'm pretty sure you're wrong, but maybe I just hope that's true.
People
anyway, I took up way too much time. Tell me about your 2 weeks, because you went somewhere nice and you got probably some reading done. And
I got a lot of reading done. I think I'm on the fourth. I'm almost finished with the fourth book in the Peter Grant series that Jazz turned me on to. Still loving that. And I'm almost done with the third Wayfarers book by Becky Chambers, who is my current favorite author. I love her. Her stuff is just so good. It's interesting, it's compelling, it's entertaining, it feels very real, but it's not depressing somehow. And it's all set in a completely fictional future world that still manages to have a lot of social commentary without being heavy-handed with the social commentary. Like, it's seamlessly done. It's awesome. I love this stuff so much. Again, if you want to check that out, the first book is called A Long Way to the Small Angry Planet, I believe. Her titles are annoying as shit, but the books are really good. So check those out. It was a good trip. The driving was better than I expected, but I don't know that I'll do it in the future. I'm not a big road trip person in general, but especially if it's a fast road trip, if it's like we're just getting there, like we're not hanging out, we're not stopping and enjoying the hotel or visiting cool attractions or whatever. We're just going. I'm like, fuck it, I'll fly. Like, what's the point? So I don't know that I'll do that again, but it was a fun experience. And the trip itself was really cool. I'm only going to tell one story from it because A, there's too much, and B, there's not enough because mostly it was just we all hung out and did nothing. But there's one story I really like. So I'm in the ocean. A bunch of us are like, there was one point where out of the like 14 of us that were staying in the house, 10 of us were in the ocean, and one was on the beach and the other 3 were back at the house. And so, among others, my 2 youngest nieces, who are 7 and 9 respectively, Haley is 7 and Kaylin is 9. They're Trisha's brother's kids, are swimming in the water. And Haley is still kind of small, 7, not a great swimmer or anything. So she's on a boogie board that her father is sort of ferrying around. But she's out there with us because the water was very gradual and had no drop off or anything this time. There was no sandbar out there. So it was just so we're all just sort of, up to our waists, and the kids are out there or whatever. And at one point, and I'm playing with Haley, so like I'm swimming under the boogie board, or I'm like, pretending I'm drowning and I have to hold on. And then at one point I'm on the front there and I said, let's do the end of Titanic. And she said, what? And I said, I'll hold on here, and we tell each other we love each other, and then I freeze to death.
Not.
And she wasn't super into it until I confirmed that I'm not actually going to freeze to death, which I was surprised she needed that.
Yeah, well,
A,
sure.
she's met me, and B, she's old enough that like the water's warm today. We're fine. Like the sun is out. You've seen me stand, like I'm on my knees right now. It's fine. But whatever. So we were screwing around with that. So then time passes. I'm in a different part of the crowd of us doing stuff. And I just hear Haley yelling, and I look over, and her sister is holding on to the front of it, and Haley's just yelling, I love you, and very forcibly trying to pry her sister's hands off the thing. And just before I can start my big belly laugh, their mom turns and says, is she doing Titanic? And then I just drowned because I was laughing.
Oh
Like,
man,
I love
that's
it. She
hilarious.
clearly like is just like, yes, I want to see my sister freeze to death. Come on.
This is
I know you.
this,
I know you.
this is a fun game.
It was a super fun game. Play end of Titanic. Yeah. So it was a good trip. I think everybody pretty much had a good time. Glad to be home. While we were gone, the landscapers took out everything. Our house looks very different now because everything was super overgrown and now it's not. So that's good and weird. And to the degree that like the light hits the bedroom window a lot more in the morning now, and it's like really bright, even though the blinds are down, because like before we had a whole bunch of trees and shit in the way. But yeah, I am glad to be home. I am doing a new regimen that involves a lot more writing on stuff. I have started a new draft of a story that I'm pretty excited about. I sent at her request the costs story that you have to Trish, and she's been editing it. And I think she's we just talked about it. She hasn't sent it back to me yet, but I think she's given me some good insight to overhaul the whole thing. I think this sort of out of time, out of place, generic vibe to it isn't doing it, but she said it felt very gothic to her. And the more we talked about that, I think I'm going to fucking lean into that. I'm going to purple up the prose and put in a lot more detail, and I'm excited. But she also thought it was a good story, so that's good.
It's fantastic. I wish I had time to sit down and just like give you, but like I said, it would only be about like the first third of it where I'd go, this isn't really working, but the rest of it's like perfect. Don't, but
well,
the
I
stuff
think
you
it's
just said,
all going to get overhauled. So,
well, everything you just said though makes sense to me. I have a feeling that if whatever you do to overhaul it, you keep the general mood anyway of what it was in that last 2/3. It's like it can only improve it probably. But the only thing I can remember having an issue with was it started a little rough, but then it really got going.
And I think that really is the gap in time of me writing it.
Yeah.
But and this is a stylistic choice. There are a lot of ways I could take it, but I think that's going to be the most successful one.
Sounds right to me.
I'm going to toss out the sort of vagueness and timelessness of it, and I'm going to really lean into a grounded detail and sort of a gothic suspense vibe. And I think that'll be cool. So as soon as I finish the draft with this, I think I'm going to start on that. I have in Virginia, my sister-in-law's best friend, who they lived together for years and years and years, and then eventually she moved to Florida. She comes to Virginia also sometimes when she can. She did this year. So I'm going to be self-publishing, and I'm going to need cover art. And she is professionally trained as an artist. That's what she went to school for.
Good.
And so I'm talking with her about setting up a cover art thing. And we talked a little in text, and we talked a little bit while we were at the beach. And I've sent her stuff. I've sent her a copy of the book with the relevant pages and stuff, and the kind of thing I'm thinking of, and so she's going to work on that. So that's going to be cool. Real quick, you and I should talk about this offline sometime, but I'm looking more into the details of the self-publishing and all that, and I don't think I'm going to be publishing with Lulu.
Yeah, I can totally understand that.
I looked into it more. I was trying to figure out stuff. Every self-publisher's relationship with Amazon is weird, and so I was sort of trying to gauge that. And in the process, I very specifically hit a thing that was like, is Lulu right for you?
Yeah.
And somebody had written this essay, and there are certain things Lulu does really well and certain things Lulu doesn't do really well. And unfortunately, one of the things Lulu doesn't do as well is ebook publishing. And it has to do with their distribution pricing model, and it makes it difficult to price your ebooks at a reasonable level.
That's right. Yep.
And in
That's
the process, I also found out there are several other major self-publishing companies out.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I started looking into these and playing around with these. And what I think I'm going to do, after having researched this a little bit, I think I'm going to publish with Smashwords, and then separately publish on Amazon in a non-exclusive deal that I just handle myself.
Okay, sure.
Because it seems crazy. I mean, the biggest distribution is Amazon,
Sure.
like it or not. And a lot of these places don't work with Amazon, but you totally can. Like, Amazon really wants you to be exclusive with them, but you totally don't have to be. And so I think I will just do that separately.
Sure.
And actually, I read some fairly successful authors that do that themselves, and they're like, here's why. So I think I'm going to do that.
I mean, I've published with Lulu back in 2004. That was, they were they weren't the only people who were doing it, but they were one of the biggest people who were doing it. A lot has changed since then, including the ebook stuff, which they only recently kind of got into. And I noticed as soon as I sent them, first of all, I had to send them new versions of the stories for them to make into electronic format. And then when they priced them, it was like, this isn't how the pricing usually goes. So I knew that this was going to be a problem.
It appears that, I mean, and apparently they're very good for printing, for like print on demand stuff. If you're getting real books, they're pretty good for that. But it appears that obviously with an ebook, you don't have the production costs, but it appears that the cost they charge for distribution is the same with ebooks as it is with physical books, which is a crazy lot of money for a file.
Well, I mean, what they're justifying, the way they justify it is that what they're doing that you don't have to do is they're hooking your title up with Amazon and with Barnes and Noble and with lots of other people.
Yeah.
So and that's what they mean by distribution. And that work is the same whether or not it's an ebook or it's not. So then they charge you that, and that goes into the price. But I mean, that's not like you pointed out, that's not really how it usually works. So
well, and that's not how a lot of other companies are doing.
That's right.
But there's also a lot of companies that are very specifically focused on ebooks, which means that they're not necessarily so great for physical printing, although they usually have options. But their business model is focused around ebooks, and so they do it differently.
Are you going to do an audiobook too? I mean, are you going to?
I don't know. That's
self-publishing audiobooks.
But we'll have to see. Not immediately, at least. We've been watching some stuff. We are in the middle of season 2 of Marvelous Miss Maisel. I cannot recommend that enough to people. It's a really funny show. It's a really clever show. It's a really well written show, and it is very low stakes. You get invested, but again, you don't want to. Nobody's fucking being murdered. Nobody's being tortured. Like, nobody's dealing major amounts of drugs. I say that there's the occasional joint. It's the 50s, whatever. But yeah, highly recommend that show. Just brilliant show. And we watched a movie last night on Netflix. And it's very weird because clearly what it was Wes Anderson did an all-female remake of John Wick. But for some reason they're calling it Gunpowder Milkshake.
You mentioned that you wanted to see that.
I did.
Yeah.
And the only review I'd had was from a friend who just said it was, quote, very silly. And I concur with that. I loved it. But very early on, I got this idea in my head. It very much is Wes Anderson remakes John Wick. It is horribly violent and also incredibly quirky and cutesy and quaint and charming in its way.
But it's not Wes Anderson, really.
No. It's absolutely not Wes Anderson. It's also not John Wick. It's also an original story. So much of it screamed source material, like this was a graphic novel or something. Nope. Original thing. Karen Gillan, Lena Headey, Michelle Yeoh, Carla Gugino, Angela Bassett, and Paul Giamatti over here, and some other people you'll know by face that are pretty good. It's not good, but it's awesome. Like, it is a fun time. The story and the characters do not make a lick of sense if you think about them, even for a second. But it's just entertaining, and it's a good, crazy action movie with a bunch of fun set pieces. I had a great time. It will not impact your life. It doesn't have much to say. It's fun. It's dumb, but it's fun. So I would recommend checking that out. And again, hell of a cast. And yeah, that there's a sort of triad of these women that is Carla Gugino and Angela Bassett and Michelle Yeoh, and they're the most badass things you've ever seen. It's also a shit ton of Brits having to do American accents in this film, and yet Lena Headey, apparently in her contract, was like, fuck that, because she still gets to be British. But there's so many others. I'm like, I know that person, they're not American. I know that person, they're not American. And of course, Karen Gillan does an American accent, which is just strange. But so yeah, I would recommend checking that out. It's fun. It is quite violent though. Yeah, let's do questions. We got like 2 minutes left. All right. Ooh, this is from Azure Talent. This is intriguing. Have either of you had any experience with sleep paralysis?
It's hard to say because everything I know about sleep paralysis, almost, it seems like it invariably involves a person feeling pressure on their, chest or, their upper body region. And that's where a lot of the legend of the nightmare comes from. Someone's sitting on your, and sometimes people will even see an entity on their chest. And this is something
horror movies have run with that.
Yeah, this is something I've never experienced. However, just a few. This happens to me sometimes, and this actually did happen to me like a week ago. I had the experience that I had is what is typical for me in this kind of situation, where I'm having a nightmare, and in the nightmare, usually I'm in my bed, like my actual bed, my actual house. You know how when sometimes you dream about your house and it's not really your house?
Oh, every place I dream of isn't the actual place.
Yeah, but somehow in your head it is the place. But anyway, no, I'm in my actual bed in my actual house. And in this case, there was a sense of an entity like climbing up on, like grabbing my arm or trying to climb up on me, but wasn't on me. And I couldn't move, and I tried to yell, but I couldn't make a sound. And that went on and on until I finally did wake up, with like almost like a sleep apnea thing, which is a little, I don't know. You've had sleep apnea. You've woken up.
I do. I got a big old CPAP machine.
Right. So this was like that, where you wake up and you take a deep breath like you couldn't breathe. It was kind of like that, but it was more of, but I don't usually when I have a sleep apnea thing, it's not often accompanied with the nightmare necessarily. This was the nightmare, and I guess there was a pressure thing, and in this case there was the sense of a thing being there, and that's not always the case. But for a minute you don't think you're dreaming. I mean, you're convinced you're having this terrible, terrible experience, and then when you wake up, you're like, you still feel scared. Yeah, and this happened to me just like, I think it was just last week or the week before that happened. I think even afterwards I had to sleep with the light on. I was so disturbed by it. But I've had that. Yeah. I've had that experience many times in the past, and just recently actually. But I don't know is that the same?
I don't know. I have never had sleep paralysis. But I've had the opposite. So supposedly, sleep when you're in the real cycle, not like a half awake thing, but like the actual cycles of sleep, your body essentially will not move voluntarily. Like, it is incapable of doing that. And supposedly sleep paralysis is a thing where essentially you become awake, but your body hasn't reverted to being able to do again.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
However, I have on many, 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 many occasions had dreams in which I woke up performing the physical action that I was just performing in the dream. And at least once that I've spoken about before, where I was dreaming and I was trying to hide and move from something under the covers of the bed, and I was awakened because I had flung myself out of bed. So
okay. Is that related to sleepwalking and that kind of phenomenon?
I don't know. The problem is, what I'm told science says about sleep seems to be contradicted by firsthand experiences for me, but I'm also told that actually science is not super good on how sleep works and what it is.
Sure.
The biggest one being, apparently science hasn't figured out what the point is, why we sleep. Well, there's some theories, but nothing pretty solid.
I mean, I've woken up like when I was growing up on the farm, there might have been more than one time I woke up downstairs in the kitchen. I mean, in the middle of the night, I went down these steep stairs, and I just woke up in the kitchens. Like, what was I doing? And of course, I've also woken up many times with the sheets all over the place. I was obviously very active in bed. Very active in bed. But yeah, they're just.
I have times when I'm sleeping, when a dream, I'm yelling or I'm crying, and Trish has to wake me up because I've started making actual noises.
Yeah.
And of course, the classic one time I was dreaming that I was kissing someone, and it was like deep kissing, and I literally woke up because I was like, and then I woke up and I'm like, my tongue is sticking out of my mouth. What the fuck is going on?
Woken up laughing many times.
Yeah.
I've woken myself up laughing, and thankfully, every time that's happened, I remember what was going on, and it was hilarious. But then I would go back to sleep, and the next morning I wouldn't remember. But at the time,
right.
I would still be laughing. I'd have to laugh myself to sleep because whatever it was so funny, and then I wouldn't remember, 2 hours later when I woke up.
Oh yeah. I have several times thought of keeping a dream journal because I lose stuff, especially because I get story ideas in dreams.
Right? Yeah, me
and
too.
I'll lose them. And I just recently, so I have a file where I put down my story ideas so I won't forget them. And I have been writing them way too briefly because I went in to write some new ones, and the old ones I was like, yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, I remember. Okay, this is familiar, but this is not telling me enough to remind me. And then one of them, I straight up don't remember doing and have no idea what it's talking about. It says, when I think it's called What She Does All Day. It says, when he goes to work, ... she goes hunting. That is it. I have no idea what the fuck that's talking about. And I don't remember writing it. So my new ones, I wrote in great detail so I could be remembered to do. But one of them was based on a dream I had in Virginia where that involved Neil Gaiman, and he was putting on a production. I think it was of Sandman, but it was like a play, and I got like cast in it. But then I discovered that like people were disappearing from the cast. And I didn't know why, and Neil Gaiman was helping me figure out the mystery. But then something happened where I'm like, it might actually be Neil Gaiman's fault. And then like it came up that like Neil Gaiman knew that I knew that was a possibility and was still willing to help me, but it was like weirdly tense because he's like, I want to help you, but I also know that like I'm your prime suspect. And that's not a good story. But in the heart of that idea was some cool things that I'm building into a story that won't involve Neil Gaiman at all. So I had to write that shit down. But yeah, I've been thinking about a dream diary because I have stuff, and I'm at the point now where I wake up and oh, that was really okay. We got to remember this, and I'll like go through it. I'm like, okay, you got to remember this for the morning. Back to sleep in the morning. Totally forgot. I remembered there was something, but I forgot what it was.
Probably the biggest block to me writing things down in the middle of the night is I know that for me to write it down in a way I'll remember later, it's going to take me a long time to either write it out.
And you're totally going to have to wake up.
Yeah, and then to do it. And then I'm like, I'll remember, but of course I don't.
Which is at the heart of why I don't do it, my laziness. If y'all, sleep paralysis is very interesting as a psychological phenomenon. I don't know. If people use it as a narrative trope now, it's demons trying to talk to you and shit, and there's really a dude on your chest and stuff like that. It's not that well, first of all, I don't believe it. Full stop, obviously. I don't find it an interesting narrative device. Like, where are we going with that? Sometimes they sit on your chest and you awake and they're there, and then they're not, and great. Like, there's not a story there to me. If you've got one, cool, tell me about it. But by and large, that part doesn't interest me because I'm like, it's pretty basic. But yeah, I am fascinated by sleep paralysis as a scientific and psychological concept. So if you have experienced that or know other people who have, get in the comments and tell us about it. I'm assuming Azure Talent has. So you get in there and tell us about it. I'm gonna go now because we got to do another one of these immediately. So write in themagicaltalkinghat@gmail.com with an email of stuff you want us to talk about, or like if you're like, the comments are fine but not enough people are reading them. I need the whole of Magical Talking Hat's listener base to experience this, which you should. We are legion. Write an email. I think we only got 2 so far, so that's going to be slim pickings. But in the meantime, also go to themagictalkinghat.com and comment on the stuff we talked about. We like to interact with that, and every time someone puts in a good solid comment detailing things, we get to learn another sliver of the Dickensian circus people that is Jasmine's family. And honestly, at this point, I think that may be the reason I'm still doing the podcast, is just to find out more secret things about her whimsical Harry Potter-esque, without the transphobia, family. Just all the folklore that is Jasmine's family. So in the meantime, I don't know, do what you want. We're gonna do another one right now, but you've got a week, so whatever.